Hello, this is Frank Neely from HeartlandDiaryUSA.com, bringing you news every conservative can use. Subscribe to my YouTube channel to stay up to date. I'm going to bring you a couple of clips from Jake Tapper's State of the Union on CNN. As you know, it's fake news, but there's two important things I want to play. The first is Peter Navarro being interviewed by Tapper, in which Navarro, very smartly, at the beginning of an interview with Tapper, takes control of the narrative and talks about President Trump being nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize, something that never would have come up were it not for Navarro being crafty and were it not for the fact that he snuck it in without permission. This is great. I wish other Republican leaders would learn from Navarro.
Last night, President Trump kicked off a campaign swing through the western U.S. after a challenging week in his re-election campaign with new revelations about his decision to downplay the threat of the coronavirus. Joining me now, White House trade advisor and assistant to President Trump, Peter Navarro. Mr. Navarro, thanks so much for joining us. So you just heard Mayor Garcetti of Los Angeles saying that they work well with federal partners, but it does seem like the response from the federal government, especially the attention and enthusiasm from President Trump, depends on whether or not it is a red or blue state suffering from a disaster. What's your response?
Well, that's offensive. If you look at what President Trump did, for example, for the city and state of New York, it was an incredible transfer of resources up there, ships, PPE, everything that New York wanted, they got. So please, Mr. Garcetti, take care of Los Angeles better than you are doing. If one of the things I'd like to do before we get started, though, is I really would like to congratulate President Trump on being nominated for the Peace Prize, the Nobel Peace Prize, because this last week, if you look at the signal rather than the noise, he brokered a second deal with Bahrain. We've got Mike Pompeo, a real warrior for peace, in Qatar, trying to broker a deal to get us out of Afghanistan. We're withdrawing troops from Iraq.
Yeah.
And we have relative stability on the Korean Peninsula. Okay. So these are big issues that I think is important. But go ahead.
All right. I want to keep talking about the fires in your former home state of California. Sure. I want you to listen to what California Governor Gavin Newsom had to say about what's happening in his state.
The debate is over around climate change. Just come to the state of California. Observe it with your own eyes. It's not an intellectual debate. It's not even debatable any longer. This is a climate damn emergency. This is real. And it's happening.
Now, I don't think I have to convince you of this, because in a paper that you co-wrote 20 years ago, when you were a professor at UC Irvine, you called climate change, quote, one of the most important environmental problems of our time. Unfortunately, I think you might be alone in the White House in holding that view that is scientific consensus. Is anyone at the White House listening to you on this issue?
I think what's important now, as the entire West Coast is suffering from these fires, is to think about how to manage these fires. And I equally believe that what we've seen in California, and I've seen this firsthand, is that for many, many years, particularly because of budget cutbacks, there was no inclination to manage our forests. That's actually a real issue, Jake, and whether or not
isn't climate change also a real issue?
That's not my expertise, Jake. And really, I came here to talk about a lot of things. That was the last on my list. Let's pray for the people of California right now. And once we put the fires out, let's have that debate. But one of the things I do want to talk about, and Garcetti said something about this, which I think was wrong, is this thing about the Woodward's seriousness issue. Okay, and let me explain something.
Well, let's talk about that. Yeah. Fine. You want to talk about that? Let's turn.
Okay, let's stop it there. I'm going to continue that discussion on a second tape. But first, let's just recap. Navarro was able to get the Nobel Peace Prize in. He was able to refute the narrative that Tapper was putting in on fires and on Trump playing down blue states and playing up red states. Navarro's the top advisor to the president, and I wish all of them were as good as he was at communicating the message.